Well, howdy, y'all. Welcome to another edition of M vs. NPR. All right, now this one's a little bit more important than the last one, but here we go.
It's been 2 years since allegations against producer Harvey Weinstein started the Me Too movement.
Wrong.
Around that time, writer and activist Maura Donegan created a Google spreadsheet with the names of men who worked in media who were accused of harassment, groping, and rape.
Now let's check out this Maura Donegan. Waiting, what? Oh, check her out. Look at her. Anyone want to take any bets on how she feels about men? On how she feels about men in her personal life? Anyone? Oh, let's go. Everybody. Oh, crap. Oh, Donegan is an out and proud lesbian. So why does she care about men? Why does she give a crap? She's just trying to tear down women's straight dolls so they have to go for her gay doll.
All of those accusations were made anonymously, and Donegan took the spreadsheet down within about 12 hours, but copies had already been downloaded and shared. Writer Stephen Elliott was one of the men on the list, and now he's suing Donegan for defamation.
Now let's take a look at this guy. Here he is, over here. He's an author. Oh, look. He's got tattoos and stuff. Oh, he was in a movie. Oh no. Wife beater, chain, and a tattoo. Look, guys, I know you think this is cool and it's going to attract you women, but it will. It'll attract the kind of women that will ruin and destroy your life. All right?
Elizabeth Blair has the story, and just a quick warning, this may not be appropriate for younger listeners.
Stephen Elliott has written extensively about his own destructive behavior. His books have received gushing reviews. The New York Times wrote that Elliott's novel Happy Baby is the most intelligent and beautiful book ever written about juvenile detention centers, sadomasochism, and drugs. Kirkus called The Adderall Diaries an endlessly fascinating memoir by a profoundly courageous writer. In a movie inspired by The Adderall Diaries, James Franco plays Elliott, Cynthia Nixon plays his agent.
So you wrote all that in 2 days?
Yeah, I put it down on paper in 2 days, but this is the book that I've been wanting to write. I just didn't know that until now.
Stephen Elliott was one of the men named on Maura Donegan's Media Men list.
So this guy was having a great career. He was popular. He was probably making some good money. And women were throwing themselves at him. And they were probably doing that to either help their career or just to say they banged, Stephen Elliott.
Introducing myself as a writer, actually.
Elliott says when he first saw that he was accused of rape, he thought it was ludicrous.
I knew that was false. I knew not only that I had not ever raped anybody, but also that there was nobody out there that thought I raped them.
And he was wrong. Look, man, even this guy, who is obviously blue pill as F, was wrong. He knew that there was no woman out there that would claim he ever raped them. And he was wrong.
Elliott says the literary community turned on him. He says he was uninvited from book events. Media coverage planned for a new book he had coming out was canceled. And he claims his agents dropped him. Sources close to his agents deny he was dropped because of the list.
I just realized that, my community was not going to engage with me on this in good faith. You're accused of rape, you're on the Media Men list, you're canceled. You cannot be in this community anymore. So then I realized that, I guess the only way to clear my name is to file a lawsuit.
Or so he thought. Like Star Trek says, even the accusation alone is ruinous.
Defamation lawsuit against Maura Donegan and the Jane Does who contributed to the list. Donegan declined to be interviewed. Her attorney, Roberta Kaplan, says the goal of the list was to protect women from sexual predators in their industry.
So that if a certain guy who you work for was on the list, you would know not to go out to drinks with him or not to be alone in a room that you might be compromised with him in. And it was really...
This is hilarious. The goal of this list was to enforce the Mike Pence rule, which women are complaining about men enforcing on them. So here's a list produced by a lesbian and with names given anonymously of men that the lesbian says, hey, don't be alone in a room with these guys. Don't work with these guys. Work with me. I'm a nice, safe lesbian. I won't rape you. And then women are complaining that Mike Pence is encouraging other men not to be alone with them. What's going on here, guys? I don't understand it. It's like they want to have it both ways. Women want to have it both ways. Okay, what? All right, we'll move on from that joke.
Meant as a kind of a warning and as a protection mechanism.
At the top of the spreadsheet, Donegan included a disclaimer that reads, "This document is only a collection of misconduct allegations and rumors. Take everything with a grain of salt. If you see a man you're friends with, don't freak out."
What Maura was doing in this list was a very good faith effort, not to try to get men in trouble, but to protect women from not being in these situations going forward. And under the First Amendment, given the fact that she did it in good faith and given the fact that that was her motive, she can't be sued for doing it.
So that's probably the most important part of this whole article, news report, whatever. As long as it's done in good faith. And this goes to something that Hannah from Honey Badger Radio Hannah, pointed out. Apparently there are some laws that can be twisted to where if you go online and you slander or say, hey, this person did that or this other person did that, and stay away from them, that's a criminal offense. But this woman is saying that as long as that's done in good faith, it's not a crime. It's not even a civil violation, that you're protected. So as long as your intentions are good, you don't have to worry about consequences. So, and I'm not saying this. I'm not saying to do this. But if there were people who wanted to maybe start a comment section that said list of women, names of women to stay away from, and for whatever reason, maybe not for whatever reason, anonymously, that as long as you were doing that in good faith, that would be okay.
Kaplan has filed a motion to dismiss Elliott's defamation suit. A date for oral arguments on that motion has not been set. Remember, the list circulated just as the Me Too movement was reaching its peak. For women fired up by the Me Too movement, the Media Men list was seen as a necessary agitator.
I was really happy that it existed.
Deirdre Coyle is a writer who says she did not contribute to the Media Men list, but she did see it and was glad the name of the man she alleges raped her and other women she knows was on it.
So she didn't contribute to the list anonymously, but she's glad the man who raped her, which she never filed charges, she never said anything before the list came out anonymously about this guy. So let's check out this Deirdre Coyle woman. And so, oh my God. Look at her. This is the kind of woman, see, she's been upset that she hasn't had a good bosom her whole life. This is the kind of woman that helps to ruin your life. And look, writer and goth living in Brooklyn. You know, Brooklyn was a perfectly enjoyable area until people like you moved into it. It really was. You scumbag, just POSs. I really am just fed up with y'all, and you're just your.
He was a freelance journalist.
A few editors reached out to me who had worked with him in the past to say that they would not work with him again, and in some cases that they were warning other editors they knew not to work with him, which I appreciated.
So these pussy-begging beta pieces of crap called her up and were like, hey, goth chick with leather and who's thin and has no bosom. Hey, I know that guy. He's on the list. I'm not going to work with him. I'm not going to give him money anymore. Will you reward me with some, affection? Disgusting.
Some of the men on the list lost their jobs. Some are still working. Some disappeared from public life.
It's breached every corner of my life.
I reached out to several men on the list. Only one other agreed to record an interview on the condition that his name not be used. He denies the allegations.
Being accused of sexual assault is a really difficult thing to deal with. It makes you call into questions every potential or actualized romantic or sexual relationship. Every interaction that I've had, I spent months just thinking through everything that I had ever done and looking for something that would back it up. When you're accused of something like that, it's hard not to suspect yourself, I guess, in the same way that other people might suspect you.
Now, this guy is such a blue pill simp that he sincerely went back to see if he had done anything sexually wrong. He doesn't understand that these women just wanted to jump on the status bus, jump on the power bus, and maybe hopefully get on the money bus. But yeah, this is how sad most men are. A woman accuses you of rape, a bunch of women say you raped them, you go, oh no, I didn't. And then you go, well, maybe I did. And you spend months thinking about everything you've ever done and looking for something that would back up the allegation. And when you can't find it, you still want to try to give women the benefit of the doubt. Unbelievable.
There are some people who would hear what you just said and say, well, good, men do need to think more about everything they do.
And I agree. I think that the goals of the list and things like the list really require men to take a hard look at, the way that they treat people that they are in sexual relationships with and people that they are in professional relations.
Which is what he did. It has nothing to do. They didn't speak up before the list came out. And then only after that did they speak up.
As for Stephen Elliott's defamation lawsuit against the list's creator, Moira Donegan, a judge gave Elliott permission to subpoena Google for the names of the anonymous contributors. A spokesperson tells NPR Google objects to the subpoena. Elliott's lawyer, Andrew Miltenberg, says this case isn't just about the Media Men list. It's about anonymous allegations of serious offenses that can stay online forever.
This could be any of us. This could be any one of us in any of our professions could be anonymously attacked over and over again until our reputation is destroyed.
But anonymous...
And he's right. And what I wanted to say was that Google should refuse. And just remember, the fact that they eventually will cave in means that if it's documented, it can be subpoenaed. There's no such thing as attorney-client privilege. Look what they did to Trump and his personal attorney. There's no such thing as doctor-patient-client privilege. If it's documented, it can be subpoenaed. Remember that, gentlemen.
Allegations might be the strongest tool the Me Too movement has. When women do report sexual misconduct at work, 1 in 3 say they faced retaliation.
And that's interesting. 1 in 3 say they faced retaliation. You know why they faced retaliation? Because they were probably lying. Now, people have done other videos and research papers on this. And yeah, about 1/5 to 1/3 of all allegations are pretty much false. And Sam Harris talked to a British barrister, whatever their lawyer is, and they do prosecution and defense. And Sam Harris asked this guy, he was like, hey, how many rape or sexual assault prosecutions have you done where you think the guy was getting the shaft, getting the raw end of the deal? And the answer surprised him. The attorney who prosecuted the cases anyway felt that 30 to 50% of the men he was prosecuting were getting railroaded. So the reason why 1/3 of the women faced retaliation is because the company looked into it and it's like, you lying woman. They never look at the 2/3 who didn't get anything bad happen to them. They go, oh, well, the fact that the minority woman had something bad happen to him means this is unacceptable. We have to have a culture in which nothing bad happens to women at all, ever. And that's unacceptable.
Retaliation. That's according to the National Women's Law Center. The only way to understand the scope of the problem, says writer Deirdre Coyle, is to let women name names anonymously.
Let women slander men anonymously. Let women ruin men's lives anonymously. Let women get men arrested anonymously without any consequence. Women need to start facing consequences for their actions. And it's that simple.
Any kind of broad sweeping change is not going to be perfect. It may have some negative consequences, but for change to happen, something like this needed to happen. That's my opinion.
Oh, God, and I hate the way she sounds. That's my opinion. That's my opinion. Something like this needed to happen. So she was just mad that this guy, Steven, was messing around with her and didn't help her career very much, or, didn't call her back or whatever. And now she's like, this needs to happen.
Elizabeth Blair, NPR News.
All right. Well, there you go, guys. I hope you hung in there with me. Another episode of M vs. NPR. All right. Well, you guys have a nice day. And always remember to go your own way. Yours truly, Ed.